Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another list, and today I am doing a revisiting of my top 10 dungeon crawler list that I made a couple of years ago. And the thing about me is, dungeon crawlers are probably my favorite genre of game, period. I love them. It is so hard for me not to just back every single one that comes onto the market. So with that, I thought it's been a few years, a whole bunch more dungeon crawls and boss battlers have come across my desk, not really desk, my gaming table, I guess, and I realized that my list has definitely changed. And so before I jump into the list itself, I do just want to, as I always do on my list, I say these are my most subjective thing I do on the channel. This is not about, well, you'll like this game if anything like that. No, this is just purely my personal taste in the games, the dungeon crawls that I think are, for me, tops. And I'll say, if you're a dungeon crawl fan, then every game that I'm about to talk about is something that I think you should be checking out. Now, whether or not it makes your top 10 list, different story. So just kind of keep that in mind. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through, first I'm going to talk about the games that dropped off the list from the previous one. Then I'm going to give a couple of honorable mentions, and then I'm going to go into my top 10. And I will say there are some surprises based off of what I thought was going to happen from when I made the list a few years ago. So starting out with the ones that dropped off the list. First off, we have Hellboy. That has dropped off the list, not because I don't like it, I do like it, but it's dropped off simply because it's just the one-shot nature of it. I think it's tops for a one-shot dungeon crawl, but I've realized that I would like a little more of a through line to my dungeon crawls, a little bit of story, a little bit of stuff carrying over. And so for that reason, Hellboy has dropped off of the list. Next is Alter Quest. Alter Quest, I enjoyed. If someone wanted to play it, I would play it. But here's the thing, I played through the campaign, or one of the campaigns, and played through either the whole second campaign or most of it, and I realized that it just wasn't grabbing me. That's not true. It definitely grabbed me. It wasn't holding me. I didn't find myself, every time I put it away, thinking, okay, when am I going to get back to this? How am I going to slot this in with some of these other big dungeon crawl campaigns that I'm doing? And it just didn't have the staying power for me. And that says a lot because it was on my list of top games of the year, and it did not stay. It lost the novelty for me. Next one is Aftermath from Plaid Hat Games and Jerry Hawthorne. And again, I still think this is a very good game. But for reasons you will see, it has been kind of just pushed off the list. This is one of those games that really, some stuff has to get pushed off, and this is just kind of how that happened. The next one is Gloomhaven and all of its forms. Jaws of the Lion was on the list for me, but now it is completely off. We completed all the Jaws of the Lion campaign, we completed the entire Gloomhaven campaign, and none of us have any desire to do it again. And I play some of it digitally, and I'm kind of getting my Gloomhaven fix there. And again, this is not because I think Gloomhaven is not a masterpiece of design. It is. It does have one thing that drives me insane. It's supposedly that Euro dungeon crawl, but you have that auto miss card, and the more you call that deck, the more likely you are to get it, and it just drives me crazy. Crazy. That, along with the story, just it has this long overarching story, but I just don't care about it. So Gloomhaven has fallen off. Again, not a bad game. It just is not a top 10 for me. And the next one that fell off the list, this is the big one that's a surprise. And that is Infinity Defiance. That was number 4 on my list, and it was one that I said, it's not going to drop off. These top 4 games aren't going to drop off, and it did. The reason it dropped off for me is, 1, there was not going to be more stuff coming out. 2, the rules they never got easier. And when I had put this on my list, I had already played 7, 8, 9, 10 games. A lot of it. But every time I played, I was making so many mistakes. The rules never got easier for me. And that's, I think, is a me thing. I just could not internalize them. And that combined with the rise of Warcrow Adventures, which I think in every way, shape, and form is a better game than Infinity Defiance, it's off. Not interested in it anymore. It's not true. If someone wants to play it, I would absolutely play it. But it's off the list. And I will say Warcrow Adventures is the only game that I can foresee pushing one of these other games off of the list at some point in the future. Though that hasn't delivered yet, it'll probably be another year before it does. Okay, so jumping into my top 10 games, almost not quite, I do have 2 honorable mentions that I am throwing in here that I do want to talk about. And the first one is Hellboy. I think as a one-shot dungeon crawl, it's tops. It is tops, tops, tops. There is one more on the list later on that might rival it as a one-shot dungeon crawl, but I have not played around with the one-shot scenarios that it has. So, not on there, but Hellboy to me, the dice mechanics are so good. The art style is so cool. There's so much variety. I have way too much. I have way too much Hellboy. All of it's really, really cool, but mostly the way the dice play works, I think, is just really, really fun. So I don't foresee Hellboy leaving this list, at least as an honorable mention, ever, because it's such a good one-shot game. But we shall see. The next one is Too Many Bones. I don't know, I just don't know how to classify Too Many Bones. It's got all the hallmarks of adventure and some of the dungeon crawl, but it's so much of it to me is this tactical combat that it just doesn't really fit in my brain space as a dungeon crawl game, but it is so good. It is such a fantastic, fantastic, fun game. It has to have an honorable mention. So, moving into the top 10. Some of these games were on the list last time, and a whole bunch of them, because we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them fall. There are 5 new games on here, and some of the others have moved around. So, starting at number 10, Galaxy Defenders. That was the first real dungeon crawl I ever played, and it just has such a wonderful spot in my heart. Sword and Sorcery is the soup du jour, but for me, Galaxy Defenders is just a better, cleaner game. I love it. After the last video, I was able to find someone who was letting go for a song, all 3 boxes of it, so I have them all. I've gone back through almost the entire original campaign. I still have 2 more campaigns to go through. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have it. I love it. Not getting rid of it anytime soon. So that is Galaxy Defenders at number 10. At number 9, these are 2 new ones, and I said 2 because to me, both of these games live in the same brain space. And it really depends on the day of the week and what I am in the mood for will tell you which one of these I want to play. And I even did a whole video comparing the 2 games. And those are League of Dungeoneers and Dungeon Universalis. They're both here together because they are quintessential open world, sandbox, do kind of whatever you want kinds of games that just, they technically maybe have an end but don't really have an end, with great character creation. And these are the only ones in this entire list, I think. Let me double check. There's one other that's a little bit does this, but these are the only ones that you just create your characters from nothing. Just from absolute nothing. You make them how you want. You have free reign with what you want to do. And they're a lot. There's a bazillion rules in these games. There are so many rules. And that actually is what keeps them off the table, because I know if I'm going to play these, I have to dig in and commit and just see what happens. And I cannot promise on these that both of these will stay in my collection forever. One of them will. And I still don't know which one, because it's back and forth. Which is more interesting to me over and over again. So we shall see if both of these remain in the next time I do this list in a few years. But for now, League of Dungeoneers and Dungeon Universalis are, if you're looking for that old school vibe, if you're looking for kind of open world sandbox, you will not find a better one. It's a big lift. A lot of things you have to learn, a lot of things you have to track, but you will not find a better open world type of dungeon crawl adventure. So number 9 is League of Dungeoneers and Dungeon Universalis for me. Number 8 is one that actually I thought was going to go up, but it went down. And it did not go down because I'm disappointed with the new content. It went down because of everything else that wound up above it. And that is Tanaris Adventures. Before I talked about it as being Arena the Contest, but the new solo co-op stuff is Tanaris Adventures. And to be clear, I think Tanaris Adventures is wonderful. There's some difficulties with going back and forth between this book and that book, and it's a bazillion boxes. I got 3 boxes sitting right here, 4 boxes, 4 huge boxes of stuff. I got to figure out how to manage that, but I have all this stuff. But the new Tanaris Adventures does such a good job at giving you this little breather in between the storylines. It's built in a way to move characters in and out, and it's really, really good. And the fact that it fell a few spots tells you how strong of a few years it's been for dungeon crawls for me. Because Tanaris Adventures is one that it's just great, and it is in this rotation that I have of huge dungeon crawls I'll put out on the table for a week, play through as much as I can of this huge, massive campaign, and put it away for a while. So, Tanaris Adventures at number 8. Number 7 is a new one to the list. And this is one I actually haven't even reviewed. I backed it because it sounded kind of fun, and it was a lighter game, a little bit more lighthearted. And this is the one that has the potential to be another great one-shot game, but I haven't tried any of that. This is also the only one, outside of League of Dungeoneers and Dungeon Universalis, that you have extreme control over your character, and that is Adventure Tactics. And I bought this game originally because people said, how could you not talk about this game? I was like, I don't know, I just haven't played it. And it had some major printing problems in the first printing. The player boards were so warped, you could just spin them. And it was almost made it hard to play using them. And then there was an expansion, so I ordered the expansion because it had Alchemy and a Goblin Alchemist, and I love both of those things, so I had to get it. And it arrived, and it sat on my shelf for a long time. And I'm constantly looking at it and staring at it. You know, I didn't get everything. I don't have the big box. I don't have all the minis. I really wish, I think there's a die that's like a directional die. You can roll that when you have to pick random directions. And I wish I got that. But otherwise, I got pretty much the base version of everything. And what makes this game so cool and so fun is, 1, the setup is quick. 2, the games are quick. But you have this kind of shifting kind of boss battler vibe that you're playing through, but every level you're able to level up your characters however you want. And there's all these prestige classes you can go into. And so I'm playing with 3 characters right now, and one of them, I gave her 3 levels of fighter, and then a level of wizard, and now she is a war blade, or a magic blade. She's like, and I haven't got to play with it yet. And then I have the alchemist that took 2 levels of alchemist, and I was taking 3 levels of oracle. And so has all these crazy new powers that'll hurt himself, but also protects other people and can protect other people by taking their damage and all of that. And then I have a wizard that took 2 levels of wizard and then has taken 3 levels of necromancer. Now I'm bringing skeleton armies up all over the place. And I've mentioned 6 classes there, and there are so many more. I mean, the stack of classes is like this thick. I mean, there's lots of cards, but so much option. The story is interesting. It's not the best story, but I'm intrigued by it, and it goes by quickly. The games are fast, and it's just so much fun. The creativity you can have with your characters, and that leads to crazy replay, because every time you go back and play, you're going to build a totally new character. You can even switch midway through the game, but I'm going to start giving my wizard some fighter levels here. Oh, look, that combines with all these things, so now I'm also a this thing. And it's just very, very, very cool. Really, really digging. This is one that might move up. I don't think so, but it could even move up higher. Number 6 is one that fell a long way, and that is Madara. Now, I think Madara is brilliant. One of the best heavy dungeon crawls ever made, period. It has tons of story. Now, people are back and forth on the story. I actually am enjoying the story and everything that goes into it, and I think the mechanics, the dice play, and the loot, and the abilities, it's all really, really cool. The reason it fell down a few spots for me is, the further and further I get through the game, the more overwhelming it becomes. And it's overwhelming in a good way, but whew, it is a lot. There's a lot going on, and I'm not even through Act 1. I have put 50 plus hours into this game. I am not even through Act 1. There's 2 more acts to go. So it's just a lot, and it's a huge commitment, and it's a commitment that basically I'm into this by myself. It's not one that I'm going to be able to share with anybody else, really, unless I just kind of want to drop in. But Madara is a fantastic game, and as I said before, the fact that it has fallen down at all tells you just how high I am on the games that are above it right now. Number 5 was actually my runner-up for Game of the Year, and is the reason that Aftermath is off the list completely. That is Familiar Tales from Plaid Hat Games and Jerry Hawthorne. This is a lighter game, heavy story, good story, with a website app that you can use that does all the narration, and it's really, really good. The card play is really interesting. The choices you're making are really, really interesting and challenging, and it's just such a good, wonderful experience. And the fact that you can play through and the choices you make will determine what this young princess grows up to be, I think is just amazing. I've said it before, I don't want to say this is Jerry Hawthorne's magnum opus because he's a young man and he's got a lot more that he can do, but it is everything that all of the games he has made up until this point have led up to, and any other year it would have been my Game of the Year last year. It was just bad luck what else came out. Familiar Tales is my number 5, and it is wonderful. Which brings me to number 4, the game that beat it for Game of the Year, that is Oathsworn. This is when I said I thought had a good chance to sneak onto the list, and it roared onto the list. At first I'd say, well, it's just a boss battler, but it has that discovery, and then the narration is good, the story I like, I'm intrigued what's going to happen, and those real choices lead me to do things in-game that maybe I wouldn't do before. I am intrigued by my free company, these 4 characters that I'm playing with. There's all these other characters I haven't tried that I want to try, and it too, like Familiar Tales, is just, I think, a masterpiece for a darker, grittier, really good story, amazing mechanical game. These boss battles are just, there's so much discovery. Every single one feels different. For a while, I was like, uh-oh, it's seeming easy. Then the next one just punched me right in the face. And I love, you're even making choices when it comes down to, am I going to roll dice or draw cards? You're going to count the cards. And so for me, I know some people are like, oh, I just roll the dice. No. I'm drawing the cards. Okay, I've pulled out the good stuff out of here, so forget that. I'm just going with the dice and seeing what happens. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful masterpiece experience. I can't wait to what Shadowborn Games does after this. That's how good this game is. And it's only number 4. Number 3 was my number 1. Now here's the thing. Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay. I am about to finish the entire campaign for the 3rd time. 3 times all the way through the campaign. It's light, it's whimsical, it has a brilliant initiative system, it has really fun loot and dice chucking, and every single scenario you start over with your character leveling, so you level up your character every single scenario, that you grow more strong with the various loot that you have, and it's fantastic. The only reason it's dropped down to number 3 right now is simply because I'm waiting for the new stuff. There is a whole nother campaign coming, Leclux's Revenge, that I've gotten to dabble a little with, that I think's even better. And so, just for that reason, it's dropped down a little bit. Now, to be in 2 years, when I do this again, there is a very good chance that Wander will be back up top. Now, I'm going to go again, I'm going to say from here, the top 3 games here are ones that, if any of these 3 are not in the top 3, next time I do this list, or top 4, I'll say, next time I do this list, I will be utterly dumbfounded, because I think they're just masterpieces and best in class for what it is that they're doing. Just so, so good. Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay. If you're not in on the late pledge, you should get in on that and just get everything. It's just a blast. I love it. Number 3 was number 1. Good chance it's going to be back to number 1 when I get the new stuff. Number 2 is, I think, the only one that didn't change spots, and that is Dungeon Alliance. For every reason I said before, I mean, you gotta have all of it. You're not gonna want to play at 3 players, or 4 players, and it's not the best competitive. But the solo co-op is just an amazing experience. I mean, it's full day to do a game, and you're gonna play through 4 games to kind of get a story. It's a loose story when you have the adventure packs, but it's just wonderful. The sense of adventure that you get as you're drafting these story cards into your thing. You have to make that choice to draft these, and you're pursuing these different objectives. The sense of adventure and discovery is amazing, and it's a discovery and adventure, and it is completely determinative. You choose what you're going to do. You know what's going to happen, with the exception of 1 or 2 items that make you roll a die, and 2 bad guys that will roll a die. And you know they're going to do it before they do it. It's just a game that took me a while to get into, and I think it will take a little while to get into, especially because compared to, it's the longest game on this list for a single session. I think Madara is the longest game on the list, but it's the longest game per session on this list, and it is a slow game and a slow burn, but it is just wonderful. And that's going to bring me to number 1. Number 1 rocketed up this list. And the reason it rocketed up this list, 1, I think not only did Slugfest Games stick the landing on this game, because I was like, okay, everyone who likes Red Dragon Inn, which I love Red Dragon Inn, it's a take that card game, but I love it because of the character and the story and the personality each of the characters have, just from fluff text and art. That's why I love that world. And then Battle for Greyport is a fantastic way to experience adventure with those characters. But I always said I wish they had a dungeon crawl. And everyone who loves those games wishes they had a dungeon crawl. And they announced a dungeon crawl, and I was nervous. Are they going to be able to stick the landing? And yes, they did. Now they stuck the landing, but it's a 10. That's how wonderful a job that they have done. Now, I haven't finished the whole campaign, but you get the feeling of these characters. You get awesome dice play with a very interesting dice mechanic that you get of this momentum dice, not called momentum dice, they're bonus dice, whatever it is that they're called. And you get to grow more powerful as you go, but you're growing more powerful in little chunks and little bits of time and space that you're moving through of these chapters, which are a few adventures. You can play through the whole thing. You're going to be able to go back and play through it again because it's not that long. It does this wonderful thing of each of the boards is one big piece of poster paper? I don't know what you call it, but it's a map that's just out right there. It gives you the AI for the monsters. Everything is clean and easy, and it just is wonderful. It's everything I wanted the game to be. Bar none, nailed it. And in my mind, this and Wander are going to be going back and forth a lot. I don't see Dungeon Alliance moving out of number 2 simply because, well, it's the heavy one. It's the slower one. The one that is going to be different every single time in more ways than Wander will be or Red Dragon Inn will be, because that's, you're going to have the same story. But Tales from Red Dragon Inn for me just hit everything that I like. Fun character. Really good story. The story is fun, is whimsical, but is really well written, is very engaging. It has surprise as you're playing. The mechanics differ as you go through the game. Bad guys do different stuff. They have different AIs. They operate differently. The AI, even though it is just an AI, it seems intelligent as you're going through. And it's just fantastic. So that is my number 1 game of the 2023 best dungeon crawls. And all of these games, with the exception of maybe Galaxy Defenders, is fairly readily available. Galaxy Defenders is definitely out of print, but it comes up for sale every now and then. But all these others, you can get them. Go get them. You might have to back on a Kickstarter or something, but they're there, or they will be soon, so go check them out. So, as always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. I love dungeon crawls. I definitely want to hear what your thoughts are on my list down in the comments. I'm more interested to know what your list would be. And all I'm going to say is, just don't be a jerk about it. Rude comments get deleted. That's how that goes. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I love dungeon crawls. I love that you love dungeon crawls. And I love talking about dungeon crawls with you. So let's talk down in the comments. So as I said, as always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.